Hey guys, it's David Miner, the director for the Canadian Centre for Men in Vancouver, and in this video I'm going to be going over some tips for how to do peer-to-peer fundraising. We have our first big fundraising event in October, Footsteps for Fathers, and I thought this video would help participants to learn how to raise money and other branches, if they run similar peer-to-peer events, they can continue to use this as a resource. So what is peer-to-peer fundraising? Well, peer-to-peer fundraising is a type of fundraising where you get people to use their social networks to fundraise. So think, like a walk-a-thon or a bowl-a-thon, some sort of event happens and then people ask their friends and family to donate. And peer-to-peer fundraising is actually the number one way that Canadians give. And the average amount that people give is about $50. So it's a really effective way to do fundraising, and it also has low overhead typically because there's not a lot of cost to it. For our event, we're walking around Stanley Park, so there is no cost. And so, there's nothing, we don't really have anything to lose. And so it's important when you're doing this to have a goal. So I've set our goal for $20,000. It's a lofty goal for our first fundraiser. We're a small charity, but my motto is if you shoot for the stars, then you'll land on the moon. So I'd rather shoot a bigger, set a higher goal than set a lower one. And so for yourself, it's good to have a personal fundraising goal. So whatever you think that you can raise. And again, try to challenge yourself a little bit. I set my goal at 2,000. I may not make that, but, I want to try and reach that. When I was a teenager, I was doing some fundraising for going on a humanitarian trip through asking friends and family, and I was able to raise over $2,000. So I think, that may seem like a lot of money, but if you really put your heart and mind into this, you'll be surprised at what you can do. So when you're asking people to donate, it's best to ask them in a way that's organic, so in a way that you would normally communicate with them. So if you usually text this person, then through text. If you usually talk to them on the phone, then on the phone. Or, if you don't normally contact this person, then email is good. But generally speaking, general posts on Facebook, they're good for raising awareness, but they're not typically good at getting people to donate because there's just so much information online and the attention economy on social media that people just see stuff and they just continue scrolling through. So you can still message them on Facebook Messenger or DM them on Instagram or however that you would normally communicate, but it's important to have a personal point of contact. And the reason that people give the most through peer-to-peer is because of the personal connection. They might not feel personally connected to the cause as much as you are, but they care about you and you care about the cause, and so that's why they give. So when you're asking people for money, it's important to cover the 5 W's, or I'll just simplify it to the 3 W's. Those are the most important, which is the who, the what, and the why. So the good thing is that we have a fundraiser page which has all of that information on there. So if you're asking via text or email, you can just do a short, brief, I'm doing this fundraiser for helping, raise money for men's health, men's mental health. Here's a fundraiser page. Would you be interested in fundraising? And then they can look on the page and it shows them all the information there. But if you're talking to them in person or on the phone, then it's important that you have a basic understanding of the who, what, and why, and also the when and where if they want to register and participate in the event. And so I'll give you a brief example of what I say to people, and you can steal that or say it in your own way. But basically with the who, I start out with, the Canadian Centre for Men and Families parent charity is called Canadian Association for Equality. And they have identified that men have been having some disproportionately poor outcomes, and so their mission is to help redress that. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but around 75% of completed suicides and overdoses in Canada are men. But there's not a lot of specific programming and help going towards men. And so that's the reason that we exist, the what. We exist to fill in this service gap, or the service abyss, as some of our volunteers like to call it, who've experienced challenges and just seen the lack of support. And so we have individual counseling programs, we have a legal clinic, we have support for men leaving domestic violence situation. And then, so you've told them the who we are, what we do, and then you go on to the most important one, which is why. And so this is usually where I would share a personal story, and I encourage you to do the same. So I might say, or I usually say, like, I'm a counselor, and when working in counseling, I have this one client, and he's so deathly afraid of reaching out for help. He's experiencing some depression and suicide thoughts, and even had some attempts in the past, but he's so scared of telling anyone that he's struggling that he can't really, talk about his struggles except with me as counselor because of confidentiality. And at the center, having a place where it's for men and there's other men experiencing the same things. We have support groups and we have counseling, which is subsidized or free for men who can't pay. It just helps to reduce that barrier and reduce that stigma of men getting help. And so I encourage you to reflect on, why are you asking people for money? Why do you care about this? And let that come out when you're telling people, when you're trying to get them to donate. So the who, what, and the why. And then once you've got that down, I would suggest creating a list of all the people that you could contact, and make it an exhaustive list. So there's some people who you might be thinking, oh, this person wouldn't donate, or I don't ask this person because they're a student and they don't have money, or I haven't talked to this person in a while. But I would say let them make that decision. You don't decide who gives and who doesn't. It's up to them. And you would be surprised at who gives and who doesn't. There might be people you think, oh, this person's a lock, and then maybe they don't have money or they're just not able to give. And then other people who you would not have expected to give, and then they give generously. So I would say, create as an exhaustive list as you can. And then set a goal for yourself, try to contact a few a day, and then go from there. So one of the things about fundraising is that it's hard. You'll get rejected, or you might get, people won't respond, or they won't be able to donate. And that's hard to stay motivated when you're putting yourself out there. It's vulnerable to ask. It's kind of awkward to ask for money. As Canadians, we don't really like doing that. But it's a necessary part of it. So how do you get over that awkwardness and that difficulty? And the answer is, you don't. So, even in the process of planning this fundraiser and asking people, I just have this constant knot in my stomach because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to bug people and I don't want to bother them. And I'm worried, what if we don't fundraise a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. And the plain fact of the matter is it's just hard. It just is. But the thing that helps me and that can help you to stay motivated when you're feeling not like wanting to fundraise or discouraged is to focus on your why. So coming back to the why, this communicates your passion and your motivation to others, but it can also communicate it to yourself. So they did these studies with people who are in a call center for trying to raise funds for a university. And one group, they got them to, before they made the calls, they got them to read about, their financial incentive and the mission and vision values of the corporation. And then the other one, they got them to read stories of how people had been positively impacted by that institution. And the people who read the stories before making the calls were able to fundraise double the amount. And my guess is because that passion shows through. And again, people might not care about the cause, but if they see that you care, then that will be enough for them to help. So for me, I reflect on my clients I've worked with, I reflect on the families, how it's affected my family, men in my family and extended family who've struggled and haven't had the support they needed. And another thing you can do is watch a video which has stories from men who've accessed our services in some of our sister branches in Ontario. I just recently watched a video and I'm starting to get a bit emotional because it reminds you, wow, like the work we're doing is super important. And it may be a little bit awkward for me to ask for money, and it may be a little bit difficult for me to pound the pavement and put in the work. But think about how hard it was for them to ask for help. And so many men haven't taken that step. So by doing this, you're helping them to make that step, and you're also helping to provide those services so that when they do reach out, there's something for them. And so just to remind you about what the money is going to, because people often ask that as well. It's going towards our counseling program. We've got a big demand, but we don't have a counselor yet. And it's going towards the fund to start our physical location, because we have all these online services, which are great, but we'd love to have a physical location where we can have in-person groups and meet our mandate of being a center hub where we have all of these services directed towards men and families. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you found this encouraging, and you can come back to it if you're feeling discouraged or you want to freshen up on it. And I encourage you, don't put too much pressure on yourself, set high goals. But if people don't respond, it's quite common for people the most fundraising to happen in the last 48 hours before the fundraiser is closed. So, put out your emails, put out your messages, and then just leave them lie. And then 48 hours before the event, do a reminder. So say, hey, it's 48 hours to the event. I don't know if you've donated, but if you haven't, I would ask you to consider donating to this cause, and then take it from there. So yeah, hope you found this video helpful, and good luck with all your fundraising efforts.